Guys, it's Chris Lewit. We're doing a Sunday night question and answer live stream. I'm the head coach of Tennis Evolution, and welcome if you've never met me before. Some of you may be coming from my other channel, Chris Lewit channel, and you know me very well. But on my channel, we have a podcast where I answer a lot of technical and development questions about tennis technique, tennis tactics, tennis development, anything related to tennis. And so we're going to merge that with Tennis Evolution and just do that on Sunday nights, hopefully every week, but definitely a few times per month. So that should be great for everybody. My apologies, I don't have my selfie stick today, but I will try to walk without bouncing too much. And you're welcome to shoot me any questions you'd like about tennis development. And I have always some topics for my live stream. So tonight I want to talk about some players that were visiting over the holidays and how we worked on their spacing. Spacing's like a huge question and issue that a lot of players have trouble with. How, I get that question a lot on YouTube especially, and also from my in-person students. How do you get better spacing in relationship to the ball? And that's a really difficult, once you get a bad relationship with the ball, that can be very difficult to fix, So I'd like to talk about that. I have some great ideas for you guys about spacing. And I also want to talk about, related to that, topspin development, because topspin is definitely related to spacing, your topspin development. So we can talk about that as well. And then maybe touch on some topics from my upcoming book, Winning Pretty, which is coming out just in the next month or two. It's very exciting. A new technique book called Winning Pretty, not Winning Ugly, Winning Pretty. So I wanted to just maybe touch on my thesis for the book. And we can talk about anything else you guys would like to discuss. So, we usually talk for a bit, it's just like a friendly environment. And let me know any questions you have, and I just sort of vibe off you guys, and I riff on my thoughts about technique and development. So I had many players visiting for the holiday, and one player really struggling with his spacing, getting jammed all the time, and very cramped. One of the first things, if you're getting cramped, your arm will look like kind of like dinosaur arms, like T-Rex arms. Sometimes people joke about that. But you want to try to get your arm, you'd like to get more extension. You don't have to be straight arm style forehand like Roger Federer did that very famously. Carlos Alcaraz has a straight arm style. Rafael Nadal had a fully straight arm style. There's a lot of good players that do that, but then there's many, many great competitors who had a bent arm. Sometimes it's called a double bend. And for example, Jannik Sinner has a great forehand, and he has a slight bend in his arm. Djokovic, the same. So essentially, you just don't want to be super cramped because you lose power that way, and you also lose a lot of spin that way. So with this player, what I did was, this is kind of unorthodox, unconventional. What we did was I had him start to take the ball. I had him take the ball on the fall. And I've worked this, maybe I picked up in traveling in Spain, but a lot of players in Spain will back up and it helps them create space, and then they let the ball fall. So that's sort of the first topic I wanted to talk about and maybe, share with you guys is if you're having trouble with your spacing, try to take the ball on the fall. And a lot of times the spacing gets corrupted when people try to take the ball too early. So if you try to take the ball really aggressively early on the rise, especially if you play like on a hard court or indoors or on a fast court, what happens is you end up crashing into the ball and jamming yourself. And then that can repeat, that can create like a loop. And you end up getting cramped and more cramped and more cramped. And before you know it, your entire relationship with the ball is corrupted. So I would just caution you guys, if any of you are struggling with your spacing, one of the big breakthroughs I think you could have is backing up, like backing sometimes way up. I'm walking the tennis court right now, and you can back way up to the fence. I mean, extremely far back here by the wall. And that'll give you like 10, 15, feet of space. And you start with space, and then you slowly, as the ball's coming, you inch towards the ball, but very, very cautious about closing in too much and robbing yourself of space. So you keep a giant space. Space is everything with ground strokes. So you go back to the basics of letting the ball fall and not taking it too super early. And what that does, a couple of things that it does. First of all, it de-stresses you, takes away some of your anxiety. You don't have to rush to the ball. You don't have to attack the ball. You don't have to be quote unquote aggressive. So that's a big thing. And then you have more time. Obviously you have more distance. So the distance and time lets your eyes track the ball better and let your brain assimilate information. Your brain takes in the information from the visual system. And it's like magic, your nervous system calms down and you can see the ball coming in. You have more time to set up and do your swing, and you can judge the ball better. Also, another thing, the speed dies out. So if somebody hits a hard ball, if you're playing deep in the court, very, very deep, the speed of the ball starts to slow down, and then you can track it better with your eyes, and that will just make a huge difference in terms of trying to judge the space better. And I think that is the breakthrough for most people, because this is a very, very intractable, difficult problem for people. And I think you have to do something extreme to get the progress on it. And so, for example, I had the player who was here for the holidays, had a lot of players visiting for holidays. This has been a problem for him for months and months and months, and he couldn't break it. He couldn't break the habit. And finally, we broke through and had this major breakthrough, because I said, you know what? Stop taking the ball in the rise. Stop attacking. And just go way back there. Get back there by the wall, and let's work from there. Let's work like from more space to the less. Rather than starting with less space, let's start with a lot of space, and especially a lot of time. And it's like magic. I'll tell you, it's like a magical solution that can create opportunities for breakthrough. And I think because it doesn't stress you out as much, and you have a lot more time to visually track the incoming ball, and you can adjust your footwork. You have more time to adjust your footwork. You have more time to think about your swing, to kind of consciously work through your swing. And the ball slows down, so you can kind of judge it better. It's like magic. It's like incredible. But most people would never think to adjust that. People usually try to adjust what? Like, what's the typical thing that you adjust when you have, what do most coaches say? They say like, well, try to keep your left arm out, use that as a measuring stick. And that's not bad advice. I know many good coaches who say that. Sometimes I say that too. You can put your left arm out and use it as a measuring stick. I always say, what about the backhand? If you have a two-handed backhand or a one-handed backhand, there's no measuring stick there. There's got to be a way to figure out the spacing without that measuring stick. But that's a very common suggestion to try to help people to space better. I think it works about 20% of the time with the students that I have. It's very rare for that to help people. It doesn't seem to help the majority of the time, but it's a good tip. But this, if you want the real breakthrough, back up, back way up, go deep, and start from a deep position. If you can imagine, let's say like a baseball analogy, if you're trying to catch a fly ball, you go back first. You don't start closer to the batter. You start deeper, and then you close in the space. In this way, same kind of principle. You start deeper, and you move forward to the ball, rather than taking it super early and then trying to have to like back up and make last minute adjustments going backwards. And most importantly, you give yourself space and time to set up for the ball, time to read the ball, and time to get your positioning right. The other thing I would say, and this is also the magical thing, is you try to trick your brain. If you're having spacing problems, if you're getting cramped, you try to trick your brain, and your brain will always tell you that you're in a good position. Your brain will tell you, okay, that was a good one. And if your brain tells you that was a good spacing and that was a good shot, your brain is definitely lying to you. So this gets into the psychology where you need to not only start way deep and let the ball fall. Don't take it on the rise. On the rise is very tough to judge, especially when it's coming fast. It's much easier to judge a falling ball than a ball that's rising quickly. So you can take, so you give yourself more time, more space, and then trick your brain. And make sure that every shot that you hit, you think your brain tells you that's too far away. And if your brain tells you that's too far away, it's probably just right. Now, it can be too far away, like where you're reaching, and that will happen. But if you have a recalcitrant, which is very stubborn, if you have a very stubborn spacing issue, cramping issue, you need to do something dramatic to make progress, because people will be stuck like this for years and years and years. And you need to break out of this habit. So you go way back, you let the ball drop, you give yourself time and space, and then you trick your brain. And you trick your brain by if your brain tells you it's too far away, if your brain says, no, there's no way I can hit that, that's too far, it's perfect. And that's how you break a very, very stubborn habit of spacing, through that methodology and through those steps. And I've had a lot of success with that. It may sound a little unorthodox, a little counterintuitive maybe. Maybe I picked it up in Spain or traveling in Europe, because in Spain they work a lot on the spacing, and they work a lot on sort of like letting the ball kind of sit there and or fall a bit, because it helps you get topspin. That's the other thing I want to talk about next, is letting the ball fall helps you get better topspin, right? So just in terms of spacing first, when you trick your brain, you're going to start extending your arm better, and you're going to get that magical straighter arm. And for me, to be honest, it's the only way I've been able to fix players who've done, thousands and thousands of reps with a cramped arm. That's a lot of old muscle memory. That's hard to change. The motor memory, the motor program that's ingrained there, that's myelinated there, it's very hard to change. So the only way I found is to trick players, have players trick themselves. And so as soon as your brain registers, yeah, that's pretty good space, it's not. Anything that feels comfortable is not the right spacing. So if you're hitting and you're like, yeah, I feel pretty comfortable right now, you definitely have the wrong spacing. 99% of the time you have the wrong spacing. You're cramped. And your brain's just comfortable there. That's the comfort zone. So if you can think about that, that will help you so much with your spacing. Those principles, back way up, give yourself a lot of time and space for the visual system to work and to de-stress and to let the ball slow down, right? And then trick yourself. Reach more. If you reach too much, don't judge yourself. Give yourself the opportunity to develop a better relationship with the ball by reaching, and trying to get your arm straighter and straighter and straighter. And kinesthetically, tactily, you can feel your arm stretching. When you feel your arm, that's another good tip, if you can feel your arm stretching, like someone's pulling your arm out of the shoulder socket, that's also a very good kinesthetic reminder or tip, feedback. You should feel your arm stretching as you hit. If your arm feels comfortable and unstretched, that's also not good. So, trick your brain, kinesthetic tricks, and letting the ball fall, moving way back. Those are really, all of these are like your tools in the toolbox for helping someone or helping yourself if you're cramped, if you're having trouble with spacing and you have a very, very bent arm. So those have worked for me with countless students, hundreds and hundreds of students. And then what you do is you can drill that, like you can have a partner toss it to you that way, or you can rally. And when you rally, don't rally at high speed. Remember, speed is the enemy of spacing. If the ball's coming fast, it's much harder to have a better relationship with the ball. So if you're going to work on this, always work, hit with someone who's steady. You could hit with a coach or a training partner who's steady and doesn't hit too hard, and don't overhit, and don't be too aggressive. For example, the player who was visiting this week or last week for a couple weeks, had a mindset where for some reason back home, his coaches had been telling him to attack everything. And so he had this aggressive mindset that was actually unintentionally making him cramped. So he was trying to take the ball really early and trying to attack everything and be super aggressive. And it was cramping his own style. He was developing a very unhealthy relationship with the ball. And I thought that was so interesting. Like the tactical intention, his strategy basically was causing him to be more cramped. His mindset was, I need to attack the ball. I need to go forward. I need to take it early. I need to take the time away. And in essence, he was robbing himself of the time, and he was robbing himself of the space that he needed to make a good shot production, to hit a good shot, good stroke production. And I think that's fascinating. So be aware of that from a tactical or strategic point of view. Your tactics may affect your space. And one of the things I worked on with the student who was visiting here is we worked on more patience, obviously the Spanish way, patience, not being too hyper aggressive, and letting the ball come to him rather than feel that he always had to attack the ball. I tried to work with him on being patient, letting the ball come to him. In Spain, they say letting the ball arrive. You know, let the ball arrive, or you arrive to the ball in a calm way, not in a hectic way, not in a not in a rushed way. You know, so like the tactics can affect the rushing. You know, if you say, I need to be aggressive, and then you start rushing to the ball and you start attacking the ball literally, aggressively, you can end up robbing yourself of the space that you need. So I think that's also very common, particularly common in the US, much less common in Spain or in Europe or in places that have, that basically train on clay, slow court environments, because people tend to wait for the ball more in those environments. But in the US especially, we have a lot of coaches who teach players to attack, and I think that contributes. You wouldn't necessarily connect those, but I think there's a big connection between your mindset, your tactics, and your spacing. So it may help to back up and be more patient, from a strategic point of view, at least temporarily. You know, one of the things I told my student is, look, we're going to do this temporarily. We're going to try to solve your spacing. And then when your spacing is good, only then you are allowed to take the ball in the rise. Only then you can attack. Only then you can take the ball early. Only then you can be more, quote unquote, aggressive, you know, but only after you've earned it with proper spacing and a proper relationship with the ball. So I think I have one question here, guys, so far. Who has the best slice backhand of all time? Well, a lot of people say Ken Rosewall. That comes to mind. There's been many good slice backhands. I'm thinking of, have you seen Dolgopolov, the Ukrainian pro? Top tenor, almost top tenor. He had one of the most incredible slices ever on tour. That's a more recent pro. Stefan Edberg had an amazing slice. Steffi Graf had an amazing slice. Yeah, so Steffi, yeah, you got it. So, you know, those are probably just off the top of my head. There's probably some more out there too, guys. But yeah, Steffi's definitely one of them. What's interesting about Steffi's technique, you know, I'm studying biomechanics in graduate school, and Steffi didn't really bend her elbow that much, because a lot of the top pros, like Federer had an amazing slice, you know, for example. Federer bends his elbow and he uses a lot of tricep to accelerate. So he's got like a big, if you can imagine the elbow inflection, like the elbow bending and then the arms extended to accelerate. So there's that style. Steffi had more of the classic style of slice when the arm was straighter, you know, more like a bar, like a beam, a straight beam. So it's more simple slice. And she didn't wrap it around her neck, like if you see Andy Roddick's slice or Roger Federer's slice. Roger's a great example. He really wraps his arm around his neck, and the racket comes to the other side of his body, and he gets a really good tricep extension into the slice. And Steffi didn't really do that as much, but she had an amazing slice, you know, no doubt about it. It was more the classic style. There's two types of slice backhands like that. Yeah, Grigor Dimitrov. Great slice, great player. Thanks for the question. So what do you guys think about letting the ball fall, giving yourself more space, de-stressing you, giving your visual system some time and space to judge the incoming ball, letting the energy of the ball die out, tricking your brain? When you think it's comfortable, it's definitely not right. The spacing is definitely wrong when you're learning. Obviously, later on, as you become more advanced, when you become more advanced, when it feels good, it will be good spacing, but when you're learning, it won't, right? And let's kind of dive into a little bit of topspin before we close out the show. Topspin, I think, is a lot easier to work on when the ball's falling. So I think that most players struggle with topspin because they're trying to take it on the rise and working on that at the same time as working on their topspin. I think those two skills should be decoupled, basically. They should be broken apart, I have just a quick question. My two-handed backhand keeps slicing or framing. Should I change my grip? I have a Continental Eastern right now. No, that doesn't make a lot of sense. If you have Continental Eastern, that's the perfect grip, and the framing could be coming from somewhere else, maybe not the grip. So that would be the grip I would recommend. You could try semi-Western, but that's probably not why you're framing. I'd have to see the video of your backhand. You may be pulling your head off the shot. Common reasons people frame is they have a lot of head movement. Maybe the swing is not very rhythmic, and there may be something else going on there. You may be pulling your head off the shot or doing something abrupt with your swing rather than having a smooth, rhythmic swing. But it's likely not the grip, so I would be cautious to go down the avenue of changing your grips because that's likely not the reason you would shank. The reason you would shank with grips would be if your top hand on the two-handed backhand was like a Western. That could cause shanking, but not if your top hand is a nice conservative Eastern grip, if that makes sense. Thanks for the question. So topspin development, I think critical part of topspin development gets back to the spacing, because if you don't have spacing, you're not going to get maximum spin, maximum RPM. And so a lot of people say, I would like to get more topspin, but they don't address their spacing, and then they can't really get very far. And so that gets back to the beginning of the whole show that we've done so far. The whole live stream has been about spacing, because if you want to develop your topspin, you need to rewind and just watch everything we just did. It's been about 23 minutes so far. Rewind and watch all of that on a loop, because you're going to need all of those fixes in order to get maximum topspin. Can you get topspin if you're cramped? Yes. Can you get topspin if you're late? Yes. If your contact point is not ideal, you can get some topspin, but you're not going to get the maximum topspin. Maximum topspin comes from maximum acceleration and staying very fluid, very elastic in your arm, and that only comes from space. You can't be elastic and smooth and fluid if you have no space, if you have a corrupted space. One of the things I wanted to mention about space very quickly is they have a wonderful saying in Spain. I wrote the book on Spanish tennis, The Secrets of Spanish Tennis. It's a classic in the tennis world, and it's in its second edition now. In The Secrets of Spanish Tennis, I talk about this relationship with the ball. In Spain, they talk about being at peace or at war with the ball, and they talk about having a healthy relationship with the ball. So that's where these thoughts come to me, because of all my travels and studies in Spain. I just think it's a beautiful metaphor that they have for that. You need to have a healthy, positive relationship with the ball. You need to be in harmony with the ball. That's a word that they use. You need to be at peace with the ball. And I think that's not focused on a lot in the US. In the US, many players are at war with the ball. Many players are fighting the ball, and that's a very common term they use in Spain. So if you're fighting the ball, if you don't have a calm relationship with the ball, if you don't have a healthy relationship with the ball in terms of spacing, you're not going to get good topspin. So I would also mention that, and I love that type of description of spacing as like a relationship you would have with a girlfriend or any friend or a husband or wife. You know, you need to have a healthy relationship in order to hit the ball well, in order to have fluid, elastic strokes, which are key part of the modern game, and you need to have that spacing to get a nice topspin going as well. So we have another question. Yes, a comment. Head movement is probably more likely to cause the shanking, the hitting the frame, than the grip, because your grips sound very good. And rhythm is very important. You want to have a nice, slow, quick rhythm with the strokes. There should be no abrupt, sharp edges to the shape, to the sort of the shape of your swing. The shape of your swing should generally be like circular or oval, and without sharp edges. You don't want to have a lot of abrupt edges to your swing. So getting back to topspin, do you see where I'm going here? Everybody wants topspin, right? But most people can't figure out how to fix their space. So most people are cramped. Most people have a very unhealthy relationship with the ball. They fight the ball. They're always constantly fighting the ball. It's painful to watch players, especially recreational players or club players, also players at all levels, to be honest, fighting the ball. At higher level players tend to fight the ball less, and they do a great job with their spacing. But if you want topspin, you have to fix the spacing. If you want power, you have to fix your spacing. So a lot of things circle back to the spacing issue. And remember how I started the conversation where I said, so many people come to me and they can't figure out the spacing. Like they're really, really struggling. They have a very stubborn problem with the spacing that they can't fix. And it's not going to be, your left arm is not going to fix that spacing for most people. So they tried this tip, they tried that tip. Coach at the country club suggested this, and it just doesn't seem to work most of the time. So you need to fix your spacing, and then when you have a good relationship with the ball, you're going to start getting magically more RPM on your shot. Now, there's other things that contribute to RPM, like having a loose arm, getting good lag, swinging up a ramp, you know, swinging from underneath the ball and up a nice incline, getting a nice ramp swing. But if you don't have spacing, if you're cramped, it ruins the mechanics for topspin. So if you're trying to learn topspin, again, this is wonderful to back up. Back up the Spanish way. Go back to the fence. Go back to the wall. And let the ball fall. You know, go back to the wall and let the ball fall. Let the energy of the ball die out. Let the ball crest and hit its peak. And then let the ball fall. And as it's falling, you swing upward, obviously. You swing low to high. You keep your arm relaxed, like a wet noodle. Not like the noodles in the box, like a wet noodle, cooked noodle. And then if you combine all those things, the topspin is going to be like magic. You know, you're going to get that high RPM, high revolutions per minute, high spin rate. But to me, it's oftentimes unlocked with letting the ball fall and teaching players to back up. And that I just maybe picked that up in Spain, I don't know where, but decouple on the rise and topspin. Don't try to learn both of those at the same time. If you do, it's going to be a real tough road for you. I'm not saying it's impossible, but it's very, very difficult, and it's likely to fail. That pathway is like one of the hardest ways up the mountain. Work on one first. Typically, I have players learn to back up, develop that calm, healthy, peaceful relationship with the ball, develop a harmony with the ball. They develop their topspin. I work on it with a lot of juniors too. So like we work on this, develop your topspin, develop a healthy relationship with the ball, get your spacing real good. And then you can start to squeeze time, take the ball early, and learn to take the ball on the rise, which is admittedly an important skill. It's a very, very important skill. But in my view, learning to take the ball on the rise is one of the hardest skills in tennis. It's right up there with learning a kick serve. I think the kick serve is one of the hardest skills to learn in tennis, very, very difficult. And I think on the rise is also very, very difficult to learn. for the typical tennis player. So you're not going to try to learn one of the hardest skills in tennis and try to do topspin at the same time. It's just going to be so difficult. Maybe there's some incredible genetic freak out there who could do that, but you're going to have so much more success if you back up, foster that good relationship with the ball, develop the healthy relationship with the ball, get your spacing, and then the topspin is going to flow. Your swing is going to flow. You're going to be more elastic, and you're going to be winning more pretty. That's my new book, Winning Pretty. And I have a great tagline for the book. I say, would you rather win ugly or win pretty? Guys, drop a comment if you'd rather win ugly or win pretty. And Brad Gilbert's book, Winning Ugly, is fantastic. It's a fantastic book. And I know Brad, and I coach his nephews. I coach both of his nephews who are very high-level juniors. And the book is awesome about winning ugly. It's all about tactics and mindset, though. And my book's about technique, you know, and biomechanics and the science of hitting the ball in the modern way, the best possible way. The book's coming out I'm scheduled for March release. It's going to be awesome. I've been working on it a long time. It's been a couple of years. And the whole book's kind of related to the subject of the show today, because the thesis of the book is elasticity, be fluid, learn to be elastic, learn to be loose when you swing. And that's so hard for so many players. It's hard for recreational players, very hard. Hard for club players. It's hard for juniors. It's hard for competitive players. People get real tight on the tennis court. Partly because they lose their space. If you don't have space, guess what happens to your looseness? It goes away. You get tight. You literally get cramped. And my whole philosophy is about trying to find ways for players to be more loose and fluid and elastic. I really believe in that. And I think that is the highest priority when you're developing players, when you're coaching, is to try to foster fluidity, try to develop that. And in my opinion, most coaches in the US and abroad, that's not very high on the list of things. Like if you talk to a room full of coaches and you say, what's your highest priority, you know, technically, I'm not sure elasticity is up there at the top of the list, but I think it should be. It probably should be at the top of the list, maybe along with the spacing, to be honest, because they're very much linked. So the entire book, Winning Pretty, the argument is, let's develop fluid, elastic players. And these types of players, guess what? They have better biomechanics, and the biomechanics look aesthetically good. They look pretty. You know, winning pretty. It's not just about winning, it's about getting the best possible biomechanics you can, which tend to look really good. You know, think about the beautiful one-handers of the game, like Federer or Wawrinka, you know, Guga Kuerten, one-handed backhand. And why do we think those shots are so pretty? Because they're long and fluid and elastic and loose. And that's, you know, for the typical person, obviously beauty is subjective, but for the typical person, loose, fluid strokes are more pretty. And they just happen to be better biomechanically because they have better space, they get straighter arms setups typically, and they get lag. Like that's really the link. Like the looser and more fluid you are, you're gonna get better lag, which is a key component biomechanically of the modern game. So yeah, that's what the new book, Winning Pretty, is about. I'm super excited. I'm doing some finishing touches in the next month or two, and we're gonna get the book out there. Super exciting. So guys, I enjoyed talking with you. I finish up my Sunday lessons, and then we're still on the court. We're still on the court at the CLTA here in Manchester, Vermont. Chris Lewit Tennis Academy is my club. You're welcome to come visit anytime. And we're going to try to do more talks and live streams on Sunday evenings, so it's great spending time with you. Guys, I will see you on the next show. If you have any questions, drop a comment. I'll check all the comments later. Thanks. God bless. See ya.